Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to our fall semester of the Wednesday Lunch and Learn. The focus of this regularly scheduled Wednesday afternoon class is called The Chosen People. And we've been studying the book of Deuteronomy now for some time. We've actually been studying the 5 books of Moses now for some 30 some odd years. We're making progress. Deuteronomy is the 5th of the 5 books of Moses. I would say we're about 40% through the book of Deuteronomy. About 20 years from now, we'll have a celebration of the completion of the 5 books of Moses. But as I've written to all of you in the emails and on the website, I'd like to take a pause from our regular text-based study for the next few weeks and share some of my reflections of the last 2 years in a series I titled Reflections and Resilience: Israel, Faith, and the Unbreakable Spirit of the Jewish People. Some of this material will be of lectures I gave throughout the world, some locally over the past 2 years, and we're going to touch upon a number of themes. The first week, this week, will be on the initial shock, an up-close visit. The next topic will be Every Day is October 8th. Then The Eternal Nation Shall Survive. Then Do You Believe in Miracles? And then we'll do a class on anti-Semitism, on the hostages, up close, and the modern-day Maccabees of the IDF. Before I begin, a few words about the class in general. There is a lunch that follows the class, and you're all welcome to participate, although someone's calling Pizza Nosh right now and ordering it a little extra food because of the turnout. You can help sponsor the class if you'd like with a $54 contribution. You can do this in honor or in memory of anyone. There's a form in front of you. You can pick whichever dates, or you can go on the website, chabadkaneo.com/sponsor. Or during lunch, there's a basket on the table. You can contribute something there, and all this just goes to help feed all of you every Wednesday afternoon, so it's much appreciated. I want to then thank today's sponsors for the class. Jeff and Lori Goldchin are sponsoring in honor of the new semester of Lunch and Learn. And Brian Goldenfeld is sponsoring in honor of his dad, Michael Goldenfeld, who's recovering from a difficult 2-week bout with COVID. And I can't believe Brian is making me read this. He's also sponsoring in honor of the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's so unfair. It is so unfair. He knows I'm a Yankee fan. He knows I'm a Yankee fan.
Why are you a Yankee fan?
Oh, no, let's not get into that right now. I'm going through therapy to try to find a way out. The biggest regret I have is that I raised my children to be Yankee fans, and they've had nothing but suffering ever since. This class is also offered on Zoom. It's on Zoom right now. It's also on Facebook Live right now. And it's also going to be put up on YouTube sometime tonight or tomorrow. So we have quite a few people, a few thousand, that join us for this class on a weekly basis all throughout the world. So for those out there online, if you happen to live close by, we still have about 7 seats inside this room. We'd love to see you next week. Come join us, because the bonus of that is you get to have lunch afterwards. But for those that are here in person, because there's such a vast audience out there throughout the world participating, I ask that we hold the questions till after the formal class is over. We'll sign off then from the online, and we'll do a question and answer session at the end of each class. So just remember your questions, or take a note of your questions, and let's come back to it later. I also want to take this opportunity to invite you to participate in other programs of the Jewish Academy this year. I created a wall for you to see. It's on this side of the room. After class is over, just take a walk down this aisleway and just see some of what's coming your way. This is just in the next few months. There is over 100 classes, lectures, workshops, men's programs, women's programs, young family programs being offered right here in the Caneo Valley. There is nothing like it in Southern California. There's probably very few places, communities that have this throughout the entire country. So please take advantage of it. Go to jewishacademy.com. You also have the brochures in front of you. Sign up and sign up some more and spread the word to your friends, to your neighbors, to your relatives to join us. There's so much coming your way. There's 2 upcoming lectures that I just want to focus on. One is Saved from Ravensbrück, and that's with Professor Stanley Goldman. You've probably seen him as a professor at La Jolla, not La Jolla, La Loya, whatever that is, right? That one. He's always on Fox News as a spokesperson for the legal team there on Fox News. But he wrote a book about his mother surviving the Holocaust and a deal that was made with Hitler Yamach Shemai that saved thousands of people. He's going to be here. We switched the date. It was supposed to be this coming Monday. And do you know why I switched the date to the following Monday? Yes, because the Dodgers are playing in the World Series Monday night. Yes. So after the 4th game where they destroyed Milwaukee, I called Professor Goldman and I said, "Are you a Dodger fan?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "All right, we're going to push this off a week. Because by then, we'll be celebrating the Blue Jays' victory." No, just kidding. I'm not a Blue Jay fan either. But anyway, so now you know. Monday, I can't see the date. Thank you. November 3rd, you're going to have the professor here speaking on this fascinating story about the plan that saved his mother's life and thousands of others from the Holocaust. Please do join us. And then the following Sunday, Gil Hoffman is going to be joining us. Who is Gil Hoffman? Gil Hoffman was one of the editors of the Jerusalem Post. But he saw what was happening in the world media, the defamation of Israel in the world media. And he quit that job and he started a group called honestreporting.com. And it's really to focus attention on the lies that the media puts out there to the world. Gil Hoffman is going to be joining us here the following Sunday, November 8th. It's a lecture you do not want to miss. Let me start this series by sharing with you a debate that took place on the radio on January 31st, 1961. This debate took place in Ottawa. It was between the Israeli ambassador to Canada. His name was Rabbi Dr. Yaakov Herzog. If that last name is familiar to you, it's because he was the grandfather of the present president of Israel. And he was debating Professor Arnold Toynbee. He was a historian from Great Britain. Professor Toynbee was not very fond of us.
No kidding.
Okay? He argued that the Jewish people were not a nation.
Right.
That was his thing. And therefore, if we're not a nation, we shouldn't have a country of our own. He said what the Jewish people are is a bunch of refugees that are scattered all over the world. Perhaps you are a religious sect, but you're not a nation. And Herzog agreed to this debate, and everyone was talking about this upcoming debate. And on January 31st in Ottawa, on the radio, this debate takes place. Dr. Herzog says the following. Imagine the following scenario. You're at the airport in Athens, Greece. An Olympic airline jet lands on the runway. On board is an old man. This old man was given permission by the heavenly world to return to earth. And he comes to check out his native Athens. He disembarks and he's greeted by a steward. He's talking, but the guy doesn't understand the word he's saying. So they search high and low, and finally they locate a translator who knows some ancient Greek. Who are you? The steward asks through the interpreter. And he says, I'm Socrates. I'm the famous philosopher from Athens. Well, what can we do for you, Mr. Socrates? He says, can you direct me to the Acropolis? The Acropolis is in ruins. What about the Temple of Zeus? Any worship of Neptune going on tonight? Mr. Socrates, there's no Temple of Zeus in Greece. There's a church. It's a Greek Orthodox church, but it belongs to Christianity. How many countries are now under our control? The control of the Greek Empire. He says none. Greece is a small country. It's a small piece of geography. The Greece you're standing in today has nothing in common with the Greece that you and Aristotle and Plato knew. The man gets back on his plane. Now he has something to philosophize about. And another part of the world, says Rabbi Herzog on the radio to Professor Toynbee. Imagine with me there's an Alitalia flight that lands at an airport near Rome. Again, an old man disembarks. Again, he's been given permission from heaven to come back to earth. He's trying to communicate, but nobody knows what he's talking about. And he keeps pointing to himself saying, Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar. And he's wondering why no one is bowing to him. So they find some professor who knows the ancient Latin language of Rome, and of course has nothing in common with the Italian language that the people speak there today. Julius Caesar asks him to take him to the Colosseum so he can watch the gladiators go at it. The guy says, Mr. Caesar, around here you're known as a salad these days. We take you either with Thousand Islands, but the Colosseum is in ruins. Caesar says, could you take me to the temple of Jupiter? Jupiter? Who is Jupiter? We have a Vatican here. It's a church. It's a different religion altogether. It's called Catholicism. It has a pope. Well, how's the empire doing? Do we control most of the world or just 3/4 of it? Is everyone still doing like the Romans? In my day, people used to say, when in Rome, do like the Romans. So the fellow says, yeah, they still say that, but there's not that many people that live in Rome nowadays. Ancient Rome is gone. It's history. It's the stuff of old bad movies. So these two personalities come to visit their home cities, but it's nothing like the home cities that they were originally from. But Rabbi Herzog says to Professor Toynbee, I'd like to take you on one more stop. We're going to go to Tel Aviv, and we're going to go to the airport there. An old man gets off a plane, and he kisses the ground. A worker from Ben Gurion Airport sees this saintly old man with a flowing white beard, and he walks over to him and he says, Shalom Aleichem. And the man answers, Aleichem Shalom. Bruchim Haboim. It's an honor to meet you. What's your name? He answers, Bruchim Hanimtsaim. My name is Moshe. Really? My name is Moshe too. I'm Moshe Katzenberg from Lud. I was born in Russia. Wow, Naim Moed. They call me sometimes Moshe Rabbeinu. Some people call me Moses. I'm not sure why, but they named me Moses in parts of the world. I'm from the desert. I was born in Egypt. So the fellow at Ben Gurion says, have you been to Israel before? Moshe says, no, it's my first time actually. So this is not your homeland? Oh, it's very much my homeland. Every single day of my life, I visualized every square inch of this land in my mind, even though I never took one step into it in my lifetime. Moses continues, Achi, my dear brother Moshe Katzenberg, may I ask you for a big favor? Sure, whatever you want. I just finished flying all through the night, and I realized I don't have my tefillin with me. Can you tell me maybe where I can get a hold of a pair of tefillin? Sure. You can borrow mine. Wow. What about a tallis with the fringes on the corners that God instructed me at Mount Sinai? Sure. I have that too. Listen, I don't mean to be a nudge, but is there any place around here I can catch a minyan for Shachris? There's services that take place for the morning services. Betach Rabbeinu, of course, Rabbi, right here in the airport we have a synagogue. So the old man follows the workers to the synagogue. On his way into the room, there's a mezuzah on the door. It's a mezuzah written exactly the way that Moses taught the Jewish people to write 3,300 years ago. And during the prayer service, they open the ark and they take a Torah out. And they call him up for an aliyah, Ya'amod, Harav Moshe ben Amram Halevi. And Moses comes up to the Torah and he opens the Torah, and it's the exact same letters that he wrote 3,300 years ago. Same exact letters. Says Ambassador Herzog to Professor Toynbee, same religion, same language, same faith, same commandments, same homeland. If this is not a nation, then please tell me, Professor Toynbee, what is a nation? My dear friends, the war in Israel, the war that Israel faced for the past 2 years, in fact, the wars Israel faced the past 77 years, was never about land. Any honest student of history knows that. There never was a Palestinian state, not pre-1948, not pre-1967, not pre-1973, not in the 15th century, 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, or 21st century. God gave this land to the children of Israel as an inheritance belonging to each and every single Jew. Every believer of the Bible knows this. Every honest historian knows this. Every archaeologist can back this up. We were exiled from this land for 2,000 years, but never stopped referring to it as our homeland. Never stopped praying and longing for our return. We never ceded an inch of ownership. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 declared the area known today as Israel and Jordan combined. Think of that region. And the Balfour Declaration says we're going to take this area, Israel and what was called then Transjordan, and we're going to have a two-state solution. We're going to make an Arab state and a Jewish state. The Arab state would be much larger than the Jewish state. The entire Jordan would be the Arab state. Little what you know of Israel today would be the Jewish state. The Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. Because it never was about land. There's enough land in Jordan for every single Palestinian to have a luxury home. If anyone of you have been to Jordan, as I have twice, there's a lot of land there. A lot of empty land there. 1917, they're offered an Arab state. Just let the Jews have a little piece of land. They said no, because it never was about land. I'll jump to 2005. Ariel Sharon is the Prime Minister of Israel, and he makes what I consider to be the biggest blunder of his career. He mistakenly puts forth to disengage from Gaza. We're going to take every Jew out of the Gaza Strip. And we're going to have this experiment where we'll give the Palestinians their own piece of land here. No Jew, no Israeli soldier will be in Gaza. Do you remember the difficult days of 2005 as IDF members went into Gaza not to go after Palestinians, but to drag every Jew out of their home? Most painful parts of our modern day Israel history. Watching it, seeing synagogues closed down. Because there was this hope that it would lead to peace. It left behind greenhouses that yielded amazing crops with the false hopes that the Palestinians would develop something beautiful and fruitful and productive there. What did Israel get in return? Since 2005, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rockets lobbed into its southern cities. For 20 years. And yet the world still points its finger at Israel. Imagine if Hamas were to have invested all of the funds, all of the energy, all of the materials, all of the resources that it had invested in inquiring and launching rockets of terror and building tunnels of death, and instead used it to create an infrastructure of a peaceful and productive society. No small area of land in the history of the world received as much foreign aid as this little strip. Billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. Build yourself some condominiums. Make some parks, hospitals, libraries, schools. The money is there for you. No. Every penny was invested in terror.
And rockets.
Rockets, tunnels. They built a sophisticated tunnel system, the likes of the train system in New York. It's unbelievable how much effort went in over 20 years. Imagine what they could have done if they used that to better the lives of their own people. It was never about land. For every tunnel that required 500 tons of concrete, they could have built a hospital, a factory, a hotel. They could have created a paradise on the Mediterranean. The enemy that attacked us on October 7th, Hamas, as well as Hezbollah in the north, and the country that's behind of all of this is Iran. What did they want? See, usually in a conventional war, the enemy has tangible objectives. Okay? Russia wants the Ukrainian land. We know what Putin wants. He wants the land. He's saying it. That's what he went in for. There's an objective. You can agree with it. You cannot agree with it. It could be righteous. It could be evil. But at least you can define the objective. Wars have objectives. Some countries have resources and the others don't have it, and therefore they have might, but they don't have the oil. So we're going to use our army, as Saddam Hussein did, and we're going to invade Kuwait. Why did Saddam Hussein invade Kuwait? He wanted the oil. Evil, yes, needs to be stopped, yes, but the objective was understood. We knew what he was after. Wars have objectives. Sometimes it's about power. It's about defining power, showing power. Sometimes it's about money. What was the objective of this enemy? What did they want? They never made a secret of it, nor do they make a secret of it today. We just didn't believe them. They state clearly and openly in their charter, this was not and never was a conflict over land. It's the very existence of Israel that they want surrendered. They never wanted us there. They don't want us there. They won't want us there. It's the entire Jewish nation. They want exterminated. Make no mistake about it. What was done to 1,200 of our fellow Jews in Israel on October 7th is what they and their supporters want done to each and every single one of us. If they could, they would. Indeed, as Jews, we abhor war. We're not into war. There's no one that prays for peace more than the Jewish people on a regular daily basis. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Everything about us is about praying for a world of peace. But when there is a sworn enemy who challenges your very right of existence, who challenges your right as a human being to simply live, then war against this enemy is an act of peace. Then war against this enemy is an act of compassion. Then war against this enemy is an act of preserving life. Look, any fear-minded, sane, civilized person understands that when you are attacked and when your home is violated and when your children are kidnapped, you have an obligation to fight. Everybody understands that the most basic and fundamental rule of nationhood is that when your borders are breached and your cities are bombed and your citizens are killed, you had better mount a vigorous defense if you want to continue to remain a standing nation. How much more so when we witness the atrocities of October 7th, of Simchat Torah 2 years ago. Atrocities that go beyond anything Israel has ever seen before. The only reference to such evil is the Holocaust. Israel has fought many wars since 1948 and before, but they never saw this evil up close. Only the survivors of the Holocaust can say, we've seen this before. As 5,000 missiles rained down on southern Israel, 3,000 bloody, thirsty terrorists breached the border. They were prepared with heavy weaponry, with machine guns, with grenades, with knives, and with maps, with the most evil of intentions. Their goal was to savagely murder every living being they encountered. They were instructed to use every imaginable and unimaginable brutality that their sick and evil mind can come up with. They were instructed to, quote, dirty the women. That meant savage and rape them. To take away as many as they can as hostages and bring them back to Gaza. Now you know what happened. You all know the numbers. 1,200 murdered on that day. 300 of them members of the IDF. Thousands wounded. 251 taken hostage. But even just those numbers don't begin to tell you the full scope of the story, the full scope of the evil, the full scope of what this war was all about. So 2 weeks after October 7th, a group of some 27 of us, representing communities in the United States and Canada, just between ourselves, we organized this solidarity mission. We're just going to fly to Israel, be there, show the people that we now, American Jewry is with you, that we haven't forgotten you, that we have your back, offer words of compassion, whatever we can do, but how could we just stay here? Let's go. Now we got on an empty El Al plane, and we flew to a very empty terminal. The terminal in Israel was like a ghost town. No one was traveling. I would say within 40 minutes of landing, because usually you have to wait for your luggage and you have to go through customs, there was nothing. It was just 5 minutes and we were out, right onto a bus. Brought to Tel Aviv, which is right near the airport. There was a building, its business was marketing. And the owner, the CEO of this company, had a friend whose child was taken hostage. So he right away devoted that his building is going to be the hostage crisis center. And literally overnight, this building turned into, from a business, into a place where every family of a hostage member would spend the days. Any news would come right into the hostage center. There would be food there. Government officials would be there. But this was the place for any hostage family to come to get information and to give over information. So literally within 45 minutes of landing in Tel Aviv, I found myself standing in the hostage crisis center in Tel Aviv and brought into a room filled with parents, brothers and sisters whose loved ones were being held hostage in Gaza. Nothing can prepare you for this. I mean, we've seen anguish. We've all seen anguish. We've seen people going through a crisis. But to be in a room filled with families that haven't slept yet in a few weeks, haven't eaten in a few weeks, because how can you eat if your son doesn't have any food? How can you sleep if you don't know the whereabouts of your son and they're being tortured by those that did what they did on October 7th? The thought, when I think back about being there for those hours, that was like the 2-week mark, 2.5 week mark. That those families would have to carry that same grief, some, not for a few more weeks, not for a few more months, but for 2 years. It boggles the mind. I spoke last Shabbos, and I'll talk about it in this series as well, but you try to understand, how is it possible that a single hostage survived this long with what they went through? How does the human body have the strength to cope with that? But I also think, how did these families survive? It's a strange dilemma to think, what would you rather be, a hostage or a member of a family? I would rather be a hostage than to have to go through this anguish of where's my son, where's my daughter? That pain, that feeling in the room, that anxiety in the room is something will never leave me as long as with everything else on this trip. So I asked them to tell us about their loved ones. You know, all the posters, there's red posters that made it all over the world. Remember, this building was a marketing building. That's where these were being made. All started from this one building. Everything was coming out from here. So we were seeing all these posters of this is my brother, this is my sister. A lot of the family members were wearing t-shirts with a picture of their son, their daughter wearing it so that we can see their faces. Tell us about them so that we get to know them. And each one started telling their story. The first couple that I met was Shelley and Malki Shem Tov. They're the parents of Omer Shem Tov. Those were the first ones I met. Omer became my brother over the 2 years because I got to know so much about him from Shelley. Shelley talks a lot. She likes to express herself. On every interview over these 2 years, she was always there, front and center. She needed to keep Omer alive in her mind and in the world's mind. Keep Omer front and center. And many text messages exchanges between me and Shelley over the last 2 years. And one of the things she told me that day was that when Omer went to the music festival, he left in a hurry and he didn't make his bed. And when she walked in the room before knowing what was happening October 7th, she was disappointed that Omer didn't make his bed. So she told me then, this is early on October, I'm not going to ever make his bed because Omer's going to have to make it himself. He's going to come back, and I'm going to tell him to make his bed. And when the news came out, this was a few months ago, that Omer was one of those released in the exchange a few months ago, my text to Shelley was, tell Omer to make his bed tomorrow morning. Mazel tov. I met the family of Amit Esther Buskila. She's from Ashdod. I met her brother, her mother, and her uncle. They couldn't stop the tears. They couldn't stop the crying the entire time. Amit had called her uncle early Saturday morning from the festival. Our first message was, there are terrorists here and they're shooting at us. And then the uncle hears in the background, run, run, run. And he hears screaming and he hears shouting and he hears his niece scream. And the niece says, I've been shot, I've been shot. But she was alive, but wounded. And her body wasn't found on October 7th. So the government informed the Buskila family that she's been taken hostage. And they're begging us, do something, do something. You're from America, speak to the president, speak to your congressman, speak to your senator, do something, begging, help, help. Tragically and sadly, on day 224 of the hostage crisis, the IDF informed the family that they found her body in Gaza, and she was murdered. It's not just a poster for me. It's a family. It's a brother, it's a mother, it's an uncle, it's a family, it's people. I met the family of Eliyakim Shlomo Liebman. He was a security guard at the festival, and he rescued many youngsters from the attack. Liebman would go back and forth. He would rescue someone, bring them to what was considered a safer road, but he would go back into what they called then enemy territory where the terrorists were. And he heard that 2 girls were shot and they were lying, bleeding in the field. Liebman's buddy says, you can't go back there, you're going to get killed. He says, I can't, I'm a security guard here, I take my job seriously. I'm not leaving 2 Israeli girls in the field there alone. And he went back. And they didn't find him after that. We met his father, Eliyahu, his wife, Avishag. We met his sister. Eliyahu, this Liebman's father, is the mayor of Kiryat Arba. I've never met people with such strength and love for Eretz Yisrael. As they're sitting there crying about the whereabouts of their son, they tell me they have two other sons. One is right now fighting in Gaza, in the IDF. The other's in the IDF fighting on the northern border. Can you imagine this? You have one son fighting in Gaza, you have one son fighting Hezbollah on the Lebanese border, you have one son hostage in Gaza. And all they would talk about is their love for Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
No talk about, I got to get out of here. Their love for Eretz Yisrael. The government, the IDF, had told the family, told the two other sons, you don't have to serve. We understand, you need to be home with your parents during this time. And they said, absolutely not. We're going to serve now more than ever before with their parents' blessings. Tragically and sadly, their son's remains were found on May 5th, 2024. There were 251 families that did not sleep, that did not eat, that cope with an anxiety that we can't possibly imagine. Do you know there were Holocaust survivors among the hostages? Think, how evil can a world be that it tolerates someone that went through concentration camps to be kidnapped by Hamas, and the United Nations can't bring itself to condemn this or demand their release?
What United Nations?
Red Cross. We always hear Red Cross, Red Cross. Every hostage crisis in the world, Red Cross comes along and says, but you have to allow us to bring medication to your hostages. It's a known thing. Every hostage crisis you can remember, the Red Cross comes along, we're not demanding, all we're saying is medication has to be brought to your hostages. We have to make sure that their conditions are well. Red Cross was silent for 2 years. That's not that they're not in the region. They're serving in Gaza. They're complaining that there's no food coming into the Palestinians in Gaza. What about food for the hostages? Silence. What about medication for these hostages? Silence. All the countries that recently signed up for this recognition of a Palestinian state, all of these countries, all these Arab countries that just signed on to this deal a few weeks ago. Where were you for 2 years to demand the hostages be released? It took Israel sending some missiles into Qatar to wake Qatar up that, okay, we better push the Hamas to let the hostages go. 2 years. All we heard was demands for ceasefires, but there was no demand for the release of the hostages coming from the world. Yes, from the United States, but the rest of the world was rather silent. Do you know there were 40 children that were held hostage? Children.
Yeah.
Children. The youngest being 9 months old. 9 months old. You all heard the Bibas family. 9 months old. And yet, there were still those on college campuses in the United States of America tearing down the posters with a picture of a 9-month-old child being held hostage.
Unbelievable.
Because why? Because we, Israel, are the aggressors. Is there no shame that we have reached a point that evil is now morally acceptable? That you can kidnap a 9-month-old child and millions throughout the world will demonstrate against the victims? They were marching in mass and showing support with the greatest display and demonstration of evil since Hitler and the Nazis. I'll talk more about the heroism of the hostages themselves later in this series. I'm going to come back to them again and again because these human beings are from the most remarkable people alive today. They weren't going in, they were just you and me. But I've gotten to know some of them. And they're individuals that you need to hear their stories because there was a transformation that took place of them from being a regular person to, I say, a unique holy soul. We'll talk more about them. On my trip, going back to this early trip, we visited numerous hospitals, filled with many of the wounded from the October 7th attack. Many were residents of the kibbutzim in the south that go along the Gaza border. Many of the wounded were from the thousands of missiles launched by Hamas into Israel. Many were wounded soldiers who risked their lives to save hundreds, if not thousands, of others. Some of the wounded, unfortunately, were missing arms and missing legs. Some were in excruciating pain, screaming and pain. I was in a room the moment a girlfriend walked into a soldier who's IDF, he had without his legs, and she's coming to see him now for the first time. In the room for this reunion, so to say. Again, things that are etched in my mind. There were so many IDF soldiers who in prior wars lost limbs, lost arms and legs, that were in the hospital because they want to talk to these new soldiers, newly wounded, to tell them, you have a life. There will be a life. Don't give up. We sang with them. We prayed with them. We gave them letters of love that many in the community here wrote for me to bring along. We gave monetary support to those families whose breadwinner was now hospitalized and whose worry was, how do we put food on the table? How do we pay the rent? At least that we were able to alleviate. There were stories of bravery and heroism in that hospital. And those of you from the 70s or 80s, Rambo had nothing on some of those that we met. I mean, literally meeting modern day Rambos going room to room. Many of them are just itching to get out of the hospital. Why? So that they can get back on the front line. I met a soldier who got a call from his wife that the house was surrounded by terrorists. She and her 2 children, they ran into the bedroom and they hid. They had this chest under the bed. Under the bed frame there was a chest. And the chest had a door that she can open and go in and hide. And so she's hiding in this chest under a bed in her bedroom with her 2 children. And she calls her husband and says, there's terrorists surrounding the kibbutz. They're all over the place. This is where I am. He drives to the house only to see dozens of machine gun armed terrorists in front and inside his house. And he lets loose. He's taking them down one at a time. And then he shot himself. So he's shot by one of the terrorists, shoot him in the arm. And that didn't stop him. In the meantime, his wife is inside the chest. Her hands are over the mouths of her children so that they don't scream, so that the terrorists don't hear them. The terrorists come into the room. They're sitting on the bed. And she's terrified that one of the children will cry out something and they will be discovered. They keep going out of the house, but they keep talking amongst themselves because there's this Israeli shooter shooting at them. She knows it's her husband. And there's this gunfight going on back and forth, her husband and these terrorists. At some point, the terrorists get fed up and they light the house on fire. She's now under the bed. The smoke is filling the room. Her husband sees the house on fire. At some point she realizes if she doesn't make a dash for it, she and her 2 children will be burnt alive. So she kicks open the door. At that moment there was no one in the room. She takes her 2 children, she jumps out the window, holding 2 of her kids. She runs into the neighbor's yard. There was a shed in the neighbor's yard, and she runs into the shed. But her husband doesn't know this. Her husband's thinking, my children and my wife are being burnt alive in this house. It wasn't until midnight, so October 7th happened 6 o'clock in the morning, until midnight, that she comes out of the shed with her 2 children. At that point, he had taken bullet after bullet after bullet. And I'm sitting in this hospital listening to this man tell his story, and I'm saying, wow, wow. This was just a regular person a day ago. I met an 18-year-old female soldier who took 12 bullets to her body, and she was the lucky one because all of our other 7 roommates were murdered that day. She was the only survivor. We hear so much about the colossal failure of Israel to protect the southern border. And yes, I'm sure there will be investigations of how this happened. But I want you to know that it could have been much worse had it not been for so many brave heroes. Some ordinary people, some security people, some hearing what was going on and just went running, instead of running for cover, went running to the southern border to do what they could to help. Some IDF members that just went running to do whatever they can without any command center, but just going to help. And so many doctors and nurses that didn't take a day or an hour off for weeks and months after. It was a nation of heroes. I remember visiting Sderot. If you're familiar with Sderot, it's right there. It's right on the Gaza border. It's a beautiful Jewish community there. Sderot got hit hard on October 7th. They had maps, they knew where every house was, they knew where every place was. And they went in with heavy force. There's videos of pickup trucks going down the streets of Sderot, just shooting people down in the streets. A lot of people in the streets making their way to the synagogue at that time because it's Simchat Torah. The lucky ones that overslept were in their houses and they're seeing terrorists shooting up in their streets. But they knew where to go in Sderot. They went to the police station. The police station was overtaken. Every police officer was murdered in Sderot. And then they dressed themselves up as Israeli police officers. Yeah. Where were people from Sderot going to run if not to the police station? And everyone that went running for the police station got killed. Ultimately, the IDF bombed the police station. And when I was there was nothing there but rubble. We went to many Shiva homes. Homes where people were sitting Shiva for those that they lost. They were in mourning, but they were strong. They were proud. They talked about the heavy price that you pay to have a land of your own. That a Jewish homeland is not easy. And none regret living in Eretz Yisrael. And there were those that made Aliyah, none regret making Aliyah. None talked about moving out of Israel. We met many evacuees, full communities that were uprooted from the south and from the north. Many of them lost friends and neighbors. They suffered many casualties. Now you're uprooted, a whole community, there's no schools, there's no jobs. You can think of the details that have taken place. Our group stayed at the Leonardo Hotel in Jerusalem. That's right across the great synagogue of Jerusalem. Well, the Leonardo Hotel turned into Kibbutz Maiman. There was a kibbutz on the southern border called Kibbutz Maiman. Everyone from the kibbutz was evacuated. Everyone was put into this hotel. And literally, overnight, this corner is going to be used as a school. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. A makeshift school is formed overnight. And then there's another room, another ballroom that's used. Anyone from Jerusalem, you have clothing, we need clothing. They left without anything. Within hours, it was as large as a Target department store filled with clothing, just giving it away. I say this, that, there's a great mitzvah of achnasas orchem, of welcoming in guests and taking care of guests. I don't believe in our history there's ever been as much achnasas orchem that took place in a matter of a week than what took place post-October 7th in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone opened homes to take in evacuees, to give and to help. Yeah, it's a tragic day, but at the same time, let's not overlook some of the greatness that we saw. I know this is a very down part, because that's what it is. I can't sugarcoat it. A few of us went to an army base. Not the next army base that I'm going to talk about, because that will finish on a little bit of an up. But I'm about to take you down. This was the Shura army base. It's on the outskirts of the central Israel city of Ramlah. It's not your typical army base, because this is the base where they brought everybody that was found. Every victim was brought to this army base for identification. We met with the team that were responsible for body identification. Over 1,200 bodies were brought to this base. These were career soldiers, many of them high-ranking, brave, courageous men that have faced heavy battle in their lives. They have stared the enemy in the face in past wars. And these brave men could not stop crying when describing what they saw. Mothers burned to death holding their children in their arms. Limbs cut off while alive. They're doing DNA testing on limbs to see which limb belongs to which body. The day that I was there, a body was identified belonging to a girl that they thought was kidnapped. It turns out she was burned to death and only ashes and a few bones remained. Babies beheaded. They told us of bodies burnt beyond any recognition that would take months to be able to find some DNA, to be able to identify a body. And then they said to us, "You're the first group of rabbis that have come. I'm going to ask you to do something. We have containers after containers, refrigerated containers, large ones, filled with bodies. They're in body bags. No one has said Kaddish for them because no one knows who's who. We'd like to open the containers and to have this group stand in front of them and say the Monas Kaddish." Again, scenes that are etched in my mind. Literally, you're seeing innocent Jews, men, women, children. As a child of a Holocaust survivor, I grew up with the pain of my father. You always felt it. You knew that it was there, although he spoke about it very rarely. I never got to see my grandparents. Never got to see my uncles, my aunts. 6 million of our people, 1.5 million children. I grew up like all of you with many questions. And aside from the big unanswered question that we always ask is, where was God? I was always troubled by this other question. What was going on in American Jewry while 1/3 of our people were being put into concentration camps? What was happening here? When they were lining up Jews and putting them into gas chambers and into the crematory, where were the Jews of America? I know about the silence of the world, that the world was war, but what about the Jews living in those days? Were there mass protests? Was there any lobbying going on? Now you can say they didn't know. You can say news was slow getting out, or news was non-existent. You can say that they were powerless, that they didn't have the influence of today. I don't have the answers. I don't know. It's haunting. And it's always haunted me. And it's not a subject I want to get into right now. But the post-Holocaust Jewish generation came up with a slogan. Never again. That was going to be from now on. What happened I don't know. A lot of questions to be asked. But post, we took an oath. We all took an oath. Never again. Never again will we allow the world to remain silent when our brothers and sisters are being slaughtered. Never again will we remain silent when our sons and daughters are murdered for the simple crime of being Jewish. Never again will we allow Jewish babies to be grabbed from their parents and slaughtered. Never again will we allow the raping of our daughters. Never again will we allow our elders to be beaten to death. Never again will we allow the stealing of our children, of our brothers and our sisters, of our fathers and our mothers and our bubbies and our zaydis. Never again will we allow the murder of innocents for the only crime of being a Jew. That was our oath. Never again. And that's what I came back screaming, never again is now. That oath must mean something. We promised our parents, we promised our grandparents, we promised our children, we promised our grandchildren. It will never happen again. These evil, genocidal, jihadist, Nazi savages raped our sisters and daughters and then paraded them through the streets of Gaza for public taunting and beating. There are many painful and graphic scenes, as you can see as I'm speaking, that are stuck in my memory. But we all saw scenes. You saw scenes on television. You saw scenes on the news. You saw it on YouTube. You saw scenes that haunt us and that will remain with us for the rest of our lives. Noah Argamani being taken hostage on a motorcycle as she's screaming for her boyfriend to help. That's a scene you're always going to remember. Noah was rescued by the IDF from the few hostages that the IDF managed to rescue, and our boyfriend was just released 2 weeks ago. Nama Levy, bleeding, her hands tied. You see blood throughout her clothes being thrown into the back of a Jeep. That's another image that was always out there in the news. If you want to know, Nama was released on January 25th, 2025. But for me, one of the most haunting early scenes was this young Jewish boy, October 7th. His hands are tied, and he's being paraded through the streets of Gaza. And all the kids and teenagers of Gaza come out to beat him. And you see this one frightened, innocent little boy just being beaten before the eyes of the world. Never again is now. In their sickness and depravity, they videotape with GoPros and the atrocities to show off. They didn't hide it. In the early days after October 7th, Israel selected a pool of 100 reporters to show these clips, and they came out crying, shaking, and shocked. The men that I met at the Shura Army base that I spoke about also prepared a files of photos of what they saw. They took pictures of what they were seeing, and they insisted that every head of state that comes to visit Israel must look at these photos, these gruesome photos. But you need to see, you need to know. In one video clip, one of these monsters called his mom, and he's bragging. He's using the phone of someone he just killed, and he's calling his mom in Gaza saying, "Mom, I just killed 10 Jews with my bare hands." And she's proud of him. Nachas. Nachas. This was our moment to correct history. This was our moment to answer the call. Were we going to remain silent, or were we going to act? Never again is not an easy oath to make. It's not going to be simple. It's not, okay, you're going to register your protest and you're going to sign a petition. It would mean sacrifice. It would mean courage. It would mean standing up to the world. It would mean not being intimidated by a world. You see, what was so different today than during the Holocaust was that today there is an Eretz Yisrael willing to fight back. We didn't have that in 1940. There's a strong nation of Israel. There's a Tzahal. There's an Israeli Air Force. There's the most advanced, sophisticated tanks. There's an Israeli Naval Command. We have guns. We have an Iron Dome. We have an Iron Laser. We have the most sophisticated, technological, advanced weaponry in the world. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of brave young men and women who are honored to wear the uniform of the IDF, honored to be given the mission to destroy the enemy. I know I've gone late today. I just want to conclude with one more stop on my solidarity mission, and we'll continue this next week. And I choose this to end with. Our visit to the army bases on the southern border. Those young men and women of Tzahal that I met, they were ready, they were determined, they were well trained, they were courageous, they were lions. And they went into battle knowing that all of us and the entire Jewish world and all the good people of the world were behind them. Not just the Jews of today, and not just the Jews of tomorrow, but the Jews of yesterday. They knew they carried on their shoulders the souls of the 6 million. They knew what this battle was about. These fighters are our modern day Maccabees. And I'll be devoting a full lecture just on that theme, the modern day Maccabees of the IDF. Israel did what it needed to do. We have no apologies whatsoever for everything that the IDF in Israel needed to do the last 2 years. It went after Hamas, it went after Hezbollah, it went after Iran, it goes after the Houthis, and it will continue to do so until every Israeli citizen is safe living in their own home. And if the world doesn't like it, and the world wants to yell, and UN wants to do another 150 condemnations, let them. Israel must do what it must do. We're so used to this protest coming from the world. You know, when Muslims kill Muslims, Shah.
Yeah.
You saw the last few days, they're lining up Palestinians in Gaza, shooting them down in the streets while everyone is cheering. I haven't seen one protest yet on one college campus in this country. Shah. Shah. It's called anti-Semitism. That's what it is. You can dress it up in words like genocide and then from C to Z. It's anti-Semitism. We've seen it before. We know what it looks like. We recognize it. But this time, we're not intimidated. This time, we made an oath never again, and we kept our oath, and we'll continue to keep that oath. Am Yisrael Chai. It's not just a song, it's real. We have lived through it for 2 years. May we be strong, may Eretz Yisrael be strong, may every member of the IDF be protected, and may we see only great days for Eretz Yisrael ahead.